There are 5 things people seem to be getting wrong about prosocial behavior in games. Hello and welcome to Digital Thriving with Weszt Hart, where we talk about tactical and practical ways to help the world thrive online. Prosocial has become quite the buzzword lately among folks in gaming, trust and safety and beyond. But unfortunately, at least in my humble opinion, many folks seem to be using the term in wildly different ways with sometimes worrisome goals. As someone who has spent a lot of time thinking about prosocial behavior, thinking about what it means in games, speaking about and discussing it with other folks in the industry, I can tell you that some very clear themes emerge. In particular, some very clear mistakes. 5, specifically. I've seen some folks make some of these same mistakes simultaneously, but we're going to step through one at a time. So here are the 5 common prosocial mistakes. The first prosocial related mistake on our list is no definition. Excuse me while I clear my throat. What the hell do you mean by prosocial? Seriously though, what's your definition for prosocial behavior? I'm hearing a lot of people use the term, but I hear very few defining it. As I'm fond of saying, if you designed it, you defined it. And if you're designing for prosocial behavior without defining it, you're designing ambiguity. And ambiguity is really tough to measure. So what's the tactical and practical here? Define it, then design it. Align with your team on a single, simple definition, then design for that. In case you're starting from scratch, here are a few definitions to consider. First of all, my favorite, prosocial behavior refers to actions that benefit others, intentionally or unintentionally. You can design and measure those kinds of actions. If that's too broad, consider just helping. When players help each other, it's a good place to start. The second mistake on our list is wrong definition. People are simply using the term wrong. Prosocial is not a synonym for positive behavior. It's a subset, one of many that folks in digital thriving refer to as productive behaviors. Here's a list we use for productive behaviors: amenability, assertiveness, creativity, inclusion, mastery, prosociality, resilience, and sociability. Being prosocial is a good thing, but it's not a placeholder for all things positive. So if you're referring to actions that benefit others, well, you're talking prosocial. If you're talking about healthy engagement or compromise, you're talking about other kinds of productive behavior. In the end, the goal is to foster thriving. Prosocial behavior helps. So what's the tactical and practical thing to do for this one? I recommend reading an article from the Digital Thriving Playbook called Introduction to Productive Behaviors. This will help you get familiar with all the types of behaviors that foster thriving. The third mistake is a lack of credit, which I include in defense of players. Players exhibit prosocial behavior all the time, especially in team games. But if you're used to thinking about disruption, prosocial action can be difficult to see. Want an easy way to spot prosocial behavior in team games? Look for KDA on end-of-game scoreboards. This stands for kills, deaths, and assists. And the latter is what you're looking for. Assists. Assists are a form of helping in a clear prosocial action. Some games like Overwatch have gone a little further by combining kills and assists into a single metric, eliminations, which gives assisting players a little more credit for helping to defeat the enemy. So what's the tactical and practical for a lack of credit? Look for assists and eliminations. If your game isn't rewarding those, consider adding them. Number 4 is over-reliance on rewards, which calls out a tendency some folks have for framing prosocial behavior as something that must be incentivized. Note how I phrase that. Must be incentivized. There's a demeaning undertone to this, which implies that players can't or won't act in prosocial ways without extrinsic rewards, without a bribe of sorts. Number 4 is over-reliance on rewards, which calls out a tendency some folks have for framing prosocial behavior as something that must be incentivized. Note how I phrase that. Must be incentivized. There's a demeaning undertone to this, which implies that players can't or won't act in prosocial ways without extrinsic rewards, without a bribe of sorts. I bristle at implications like this. Really looks down on players and shrugs off any responsibility that game developers might have. Rewarding for prosocial behavior has a few challenges. 1, not everybody responds the same way to extrinsic rewards for behavior change. Some people respond very well, some not at all. You give extrinsic rewards for what players were already intrinsically motivated to do, you can undermine intrinsic motivation. Additionally, rewards are asking players to think about something else, something in addition to everything the game already requires them to think about. And so in the heat of battle, everything besides the task at hand, risks being forgotten. So when pressure is on, the brain automatically limits you to personal, and prosocial goes right out the window. That is, unless prosocial action is a better way to win, which comes down to game design. This highlights an opportunity for game developers. Design explicitly for teamwork. By their nature, games historically have conditioned players to play to win. What games have not done historically is to condition players to play to win as a team. We cannot assume that gamers have played sports and are used to thinking in terms of interdependency. So, game designers out there, hint, hint. Anyway, what's one tactical and practical option for this? Well, if you're thinking about extrinsic rewards for prosocial behavior, start small, not big. You can preserve intrinsic motivation by keeping any intrinsic rewards on the tiny side. The fifth mistake on our list is no features. It's one of my favorite gotcha questions. What did you build that's prosocial? If you want players to act in prosocial ways, it's only fair to give them prosocial features. Do you have prosocial features? Do you know what I mean? In the Digital Thriving Playbook, we mention many such features, explicitly and implicitly, but I hesitate to list many. Why? Because I don't want to shortcut your thinking. You always need to be thinking about the right feature, not any feature. Adding anything to your game is a poor approach to quality, but I will mention a few things. Reciprocal mechanics like high fives are classics. They require multiple players to execute and are prosocial actions that don't interfere with core gameplay. One fairly recent example that I've found interesting is from Helldivers 2, where respawns are shared across the squad and locations chosen by calling a reinforced stratagem. In other words, when a fallen comrade comes back, it's directional and purposeful to the benefit of the team. Prosocial all over. Now, what's the tactical and practical for when players have no way to express prosocial behavior? Build something specifically for prosocial expression. You probably guessed one. Okay, let's review 5 common prosocial mistakes. Number 1, no definition, not defining and aligning around what you mean by prosocial. Number 2, wrong definition, which is usually using prosocial to mean anything positive. Number 3, lack of credit, not giving players enough credit for the prosocial behavior they're already exhibiting. Number 4, reliance on rewards. Approaching prosocial behavior as something that must always be lured or bribed with an extrinsic reward. And finally, number 5, no features. If you want something prosocial, build something prosocial. Well, that's it for this episode. Thank you for joining. Please hit subscribe wherever you're watching, and I hope you're thriving out there.